Hello, friends. Motivational strategies and changing trends. Under this podcast series, this is new episode. As part of motivation, we need to continuously engage with the audience, and one of the way to continuously engage is to tell a story. Stories can be of various types. I am going to try today a story in a monologue format or a soliloquy format. Please listen carefully. If you like it, that means I told it correctly. Okay, so let's start. Last thing I remember before passing out, probably the glass of wine was spilled from my hand. It was just slipped. Royal servers came. In that condition, I observed they were picking me up and I was put on the bed. Royal surgeon was there. He was examining me. I heard Ptolemy was talking to everybody and giving orders. They suspected poison. I was feeling very warm inside. Surely enough, I was under the fever. They were trying to see what kind of fever it was. That moment, I saw Aristotle. I was not sure how he would be there at that time or why he would be there, but I couldn't thought anything more than that. I knew he was my guru, that's all. My eyes were closed. Entire life was opening in front of my eyes, even though they are closed. I remember my childhood. It was Prince's childhood, and indeed it was. I had my loving father and my mother. My father, King Philip, was a great warrior king. I was to be the regent to the crown. I was named Alexander. That means the conqueror, the warrior. I was loved by everybody. I had so many special friends. My mother and I used to be very close. My mother, Olympia, she used to tell me stories. She told me when I was getting born, she saw a dream, and in that dream, she saw a ferocious big lion. Such a great woman. She always used to tell me the stories of the great pharaohs and the great southern land, the great monuments they built. I used to envision them in my mind. I had some very special friends. They used to look after me very carefully. The prince. The prince was there and they were developing him, carefully guarding him, carefully guiding him. Since my early childhood, I was trained at war games. I loved cavalry, particularly. I loved horses. They were my favorites. I used to ride several of them. But when the prince is there, there will be opposition and enemies. There were several peoples and they weren't liking me. They used to try to make me look down or make me fall down at any given opportunity. I still remember the story. I was around 10 years old. A horse trader came. He brought a horse from some foreign land. That horse was such a marvelous, marvelous creature. Wow. The trader told not a single body is able to ride on him till now. The horse wouldn't let anyone even come near. When my father saw that, he put a reward. Whoever can ride the horse would win a big prize. But nobody could win. We had big Olympic stadiums where the game used to take place. Several people tried in vain. Not a thing. My enemies saw that and they thought, wow, let's try the prince. They said, oh, can Prince Alexander do it? He's a great horseman. I was a prince and I was not supposed to play those kind of games. But I was not afraid. I always knew there were some special elements will take care of me. My father asked, would you try? I said yes. There was nothing to look back. The day came. Entire population of the state came to the stadium. Prince Alexander is going to tame a horse. The horse was never ridden before. Will he be successful? Almost it was like if I couldn't, then my position as a prince would become jeopardized. I knew I have my friends. When the day came, somebody came and whispered in my ears, do not take the horse in the middle of the stadium. Take him on the side. I did not understand. But I knew those commands or those suggestions whispered in my ears are supposed to be followed. I did exactly. I did not attempt to ride the horse at all. I just took that horse, slowly walked with him, and took him at the edge of the ring. What a transformation! That kicking and jumping animal was simply calmed down, perfectly tamed, like a calf. Such a beautiful animal. I observed. The face was like a big ox. Now that was the time. I took a jump and ride on it, and I took a round around the stadium. Everybody shouted, everybody cheered. They knew there is a prince and who is the greatest. Now I understood. The animal was feared of its shadow. Voices was telling me was correct. When he was taken away from the middle of the ring, he did not see his shadow, and that's how he became tamed. I feel so good. I knew those voices will be there for me. I felt I'm there for some purpose. But even my father, King Philip, he was also supposed to be for some purpose. He was supposed to be the great king, but he always busy fighting with the nearby city states and never came out of it. We had Byzantines, we had Romans, we have Anatolians, along with all other Hellenic states nearby. There was a southern land, and we used to be always fighting with them. But all of us had one common enemy. They used to be much further. We had to cross the Asia to reach them. Those were the Persians. Those were the common enemies of all of us. I was always trying to understand the voices. I was thinking, probably I'm the one who is going to conquer the Silk Route. and would reach to the great eastern river, the bounds of which nobody knew so far. But for that, I must defeat the Persian Empire. Days passed. I was the young prince now. I was the best. My father put me in a great academy for my formal education because a prince, a future king, needs to have a great education. The academy had the best philosophers in the known world. Amongst them was Aristotle. He was the best philosopher at that time. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, those the best trio of the Hellenic world. I was admitted there. There are so many things I learned: physics, mathematics, geometry. I learned there is a southern land and there is a great river called Nile. There were wizards and they used to do so many fascinating things there. All those wizards are called alchemists. I was very fascinated. I was interesting. I was very interested in the geometry. We used to have a debate about the earth and its shape. In the academy, they used to say, sun and moon who are circling around the world are round. The stars look further, but they also look round. That means our world must be spherical or at least half spherical. They were calculations. They had even found the circumference of a possible round earth. On our west, there was the Roman Empire. Then there was Hispania, Gaul, the land of Ira, Picts, and then there was a big ocean. We didn't know the outer bound of that either. We only knew Atlantis. Our great city Atlantis was swallowed by the ocean due to demonic curse. On the east, there were Anatolians, several city states, Shurs, Ashurs. On the south of it, there was Holy Land. After Anatolia is crossed, there were the Persian Empire, and they used to govern the Silk Route. Aristotle told me on the east, there is a land called Chin, and the land always had new and wonderful things people produce. At far end of the Silk Road, there is a great eastern river. That eastern river is same as Atlantic. We don't know the outer bound of that. On the east, people have different vocabularies. We need to teach them our philosophy. There are very huge mountains in between. The peaks reach to the sky. On the southern land of the big mountains, there is a land called Indus. If you want to if you want to conquer all of these, you need to defeat the Persian Empire. Without that, this is not possible. When I used to look at Aristotle, he used to be very mysterious to me. He used to look into my eyes. He was my guru. But sometimes I had a feeling he knew what is the purpose of my life. Perhaps I am the chosen one. Sometimes I felt there is a rivalry. I knew my father had freed the land which he used to govern, and in return, he is giving me the knowledge and education. Anyway, he was the best teacher. His philosophy was the best. I asked him why Persians are undefeated. Even in the recent past, they came up to the Greece. They reached to the Athens. They burned the several Hellenic cities. The Roman Empire and the Hellenic empires tried to defeat them, but couldn't. Why? But why? As usual, Aristotle looked through my eyes. He said, they will be defeated. It's not that difficult. I asked how and why not till now. He said, all the previous Hellenic and Roman emperors were trying to invade. They tried to conquer. So far, no army crossed the Persian Empire, but individuals did. Frankly, I did not understand. Aristotle explained several individuals in terms of the stories he told that the caravans has crossed, but not the army. I think something struck me. Aristotle told me there are big differences. There is a steep gradient of class hierarchy once you reach and cross Persians. Again, I did not get that what he said. But I completed my education in the academy. When I came back, things were totally different. Earlier, everybody admiring me as a prince, but in between, all my rivals had taken over. And I understood my father was marrying another marriage, the Prince Cleopatra. They were saying they wanted a Hellenic heir to the kingdom. I asked, isn't Macedonia part of the Hellenic Empire? I went to my mother and I asked, is Macedonia is not part of greater Hellenic states? What are they talking about? She did not answer. Things kept on happening. Myself and my mother had to flee. The rivals took over, but it turned out to be disaster. My father was part of the assassination. There was chaos. All my friends and my well-wishers were there. I had the voices. They told me, go, you are going to become the king. I followed. I went. I marched. I won. Nobody dared to do anything. People just warmly accepted me as their king. Alexander the great King Alexander from Macedonia, the great Hellenic king, the son of Zeus. Everybody hailed me. As an emperor, I had several titles: son of Zeus, king of Hellenic, and I had to solve all the problems which the kingdom was facing as a hegemon of the Hellenic state. I thought conquering the city states nearby as a first step, but things were different this time. I was getting the voices. I need to win the East. Perhaps I was understanding now the purpose of my life. The purpose, what Aristotle's eyes were telling me, the voices were suggesting me. I was not sure. Immediately, we had to build the forces. We had so great generals from the Hellenic army, great soldiers from the Macedonians, and we marched direction east. We won the Byzantine, Anatolian, and moved to the land of Shurs. Then went to the south, crossed the Holy Land, paying the respect. There was some opposition happened. Ultimately, I was able to reach the land of Egypt. I saw the Nile, which I heard so many stories about. I heard all those pharaohs. When I came, The land was under Persian influence. But when the king came, the Persian just flee. And I was just accepted as a pharaoh. The people called me, "You are the son of Ra, or the son of God's son." I told them, "I am the son of Zeus. I am the hegemon of the Hellenic states." Anyway, they titled me as a son of Ra and the pharaoh of the land. They took me to another place called Memphis. There I met an oracle. He was very mysterious. I felt his influencing power once I saw him. The oracle actually didn't say anything. Only his eyes were talking to me. The Alexander the Conqueror, the warrior. We started some journey to the south and west of the desert. I was not sure where are we. There were two eagles which were flying by and guiding me the direction. I was told as long as the oracle doesn't say anything, we would march. I was continuously trying to understand about myself, about purpose of my life, what is happening here. Am I getting some kind of revelations? I knew in the Holy Land there were some people who got that. Am I the one like that? I asked the oracle several times, "Am I the chosen one? What's happening here?" He did not answer. Eagles kept flying. I went to somewhere and they crowned me as their pharaoh. And I was ordered to march east. I was told people in the east do idolatry and we need to give them the knowledge. We need to teach them the philosophy. We need to make them understand the new culture. Now I understand what Aristotle was saying. He wanted to teach them the philosophy and the knowledge of the academy. But how this is possible when the big strong empire in between? Things were turning very rapidly in different way. When King Alexander comes, everybody was accepting him. Persian king was just running away. He was sending a secret message that he wanted to be friend and share the power. The king mother accepted me as her king. All the royal Persians accepted me as their Shah. This was never happened. I was the hegemon of the Hellenic kingdom. I was the pharaoh of the southern land, and I was the Shah of the great Persian kingdom. How this happened? There was no opposition to the King Alexander. Rather, everybody warmly accepted me. Nobody was really fighting. It was so odd. This was never happened. All the previous Hellenic and Roman armies were harshly fought over. But here, King Alexander came, he saw, he won. I had a question. I thought, am I a warrior? Am I a conqueror? Or King Alexander, the assimilator? Who it is? I asked the question to myself. We reached Mesopotamia. The land was different from Persian, but it was under their influence. There was a great city called Babylon, literally means the gate of lion. From there onwards, the actual Persian land was starting, but they were already defeated. There was not much resistance. I think I was getting the message now. I, Alexander the Macedonian, the Hellenic hegemon, king of Chios, king of Ra, son of Ra, Pharaoh, and Shah. And all the folks wanted to assimilate with me. Everybody was liking me, everybody was loving me. I ordered all my Hellenic generals to respect the land, respect the culture. Here I observed the hierarchy, what Aristotle told me. I ordered my Hellenic soldiers to assimilate the local subject. It was such a great feeling, such a warm people, so diverse and rich culture, traditions, arts, artifacts. But I was being told East. We didn't stay much in Persia and we moved from there to the east, where it is called land of Arya. That was the place where mountains started. The mountains peak were reaching literally sky. The clouds were at the meeting point. From here, the Silk Road, if you go to the northeast, we can go to the Chin. And if you go to the south, we will be going to the Khyber Pass and then we will reach the land of Indus. I reach Arya, the king of land, a Persian who used to sit on the top of mountain. I learned that mountain is referred as Mount Sumeru and even the sun, our God's sun, circles around it. They were eager to welcome me. They were eager to welcome an army perhaps invading. They all were admiring me and loving me. Beautiful Princess Roxana was offered as a peace treaty. All my forces, generals, literally awed by the warm gesture from the so coveted people. That was such a great honor, a dignification, and was not experienced before, as far as we know. Here in this land, we started noticing the statues, idols, images, so beautifully carved in the stone. They resemble me somewhat the Hellenic and Roman gods. I noticed a strange and different language there. That vocabulary was spoken only by the elites. I understood. If we want to learn that language, person needs to spend years to get the mastery. That language was a literacy language and not used for day to day speaking. There were epics and stories composed into it in the form of 2 to 4 lines, stanzas. I learned there were thousands of stanzas, and most majestic thing was the language was not in the writing form. Everything, all the literature was through memorization. That was truly fascinating. I tried to learn about that mystic vocabulary. And again, and again, and again, I was taken aback. I was able to spot several of the words in that language. They had exactly same meaning in the Hellenic or Latin, as if as if that language was a sister language. How this was possible? I asked the question. There was not really correct or satisfactory answer ever provided. We marched through the Khyber Pass. Again, everybody just welcoming us. There was no fight. The mountain and terrain was sufficient to beat any mighty army. The cavalry and mounted soldiers cannot defeat That terrain. The terrain was itself will defeat everybody. There were several city states just like us, but all the kings were so warm and they wanted to be our friends. We went through the mountains and reached the land of Gandhara. Literally means land of beautifuls. The beautiful and lush valleys were proving the name associated with it. We went through the mountains. Time and distance was passing without us knowing about. Army of that size has no difficulty in the terrain which was so inhospitable. The gesture was so warm. Now I was told the great river of Indus, which we heard so much about, we have just reached there. It was going to open a great chapter for all of the Hellenic world. This never happened before at this scale. I observed the people, they were strong, they were pious, they were very curious. They used to worship the idols and statues, which were strikingly similar to the Hellenic and Roman gods. People would automatically fold their hands whenever they observe the presence of great virtues or power in anything. They would worship fire, river, mountains, wind, animals, rocks, land, almost anything in nature, anything having great virtues. They had strong belief. Anything either moving or not moving, either living or not living, is inherited from the God, and they would pray him. They would pray to the awe of the supreme being. They would see the God through anybody. Things were so far, so apart, but so similar, as if one of the Hellenic state in the different form. I saw there is a Odyssey, there is a Iliad, just in different form. Composer Homer was not the one or unique. There were many. There were sages. They were called Rishis. It was such a beautiful land, lush green, full of rivers. We didn't know how much is the extent of that. We were told that wonderful mystic stories once we cross and go beyond the eastern bank of the river Indus. So far, no king really fought a war with my army. But here, in this land, I met one. I met one who really fought. Even his generals were going against him. He never surrendered. He was brought in front of me in the chains. I saw the difference in him. I asked him, "You are standing in front of great King Alexander, and how you should be treated?" The question would have frightened anybody else. But he answered, "Treat me as a king, treat me as your friend." Such a great answer. It was firm but so gracious. I ordered Ptolemy to restore him and the kingdom. Time was passing. We were firm control of the land. All the Hellenic culture was waiting to be spread there. I was wondering in myself, was this the message? Was the purpose of King Alexander's life to spread the message to all the remote lands? Is this was is this what the voice is telling me? Is this what Aristotle wanted from me? While traversing the land, I came across the learning academy, almost same size. where I got my education. That learning academy was even bigger in the sense they had many scholars. They had knowledge about the Oriental and as well as the understanding of what Aristotle and his academy had. I asked the question, Aristotle wanted me to pour his knowledge here, or perhaps he wanted to learn the Oriental knowledge from them. The eastern bank of Indus, the fertile plains on the eastern side, there was unknown eastern ocean, could be a much sought bridge to the Silk Road through the water. All were just signaling me. My soldiers, my Hellenic generals were so excited. They were already filled with those magical stories, those wizards, all those unknown great things. They would find probably an alternate route to the Silk Route. But, 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 no. Yes, no was the call given by the voices. It was extremely firm and determined call. No. My mind cried out. I asked why, but why? Things started happening. An arrow was shot, and yes, first time King Alexander was wounded in the battleground. Just a narrow escape. Fear of death was not a factor for King Alexander, but the message was coming. My friend, my dear friend, oh no, Book of Hellas, he left me. He chose to leave me. That was unbearable. We were hanging around the bank of Indus, but no was the call. I knew from my experience when I hear such a call, that means it needs to be followed. I tried. I asked again, why? Isn't the purpose of my life with this expedition? We would keep going to the east, to the great lands, and to the Silk Route, the great land of Chin, and beyond. The inner voices told me, you should not cross Indus. I rebelled. I deferred. Would I not going to win next? Is that what you fear? Voices told me calmly, you will not win. How? Why? How that's possible? King Alexander never tested a defeat so far. Voices told me, you will be the loser. You will not be the King Alexander. They will defeat you. They will defeat the animosity inside you. You will not be King Alexander anymore. But but you will become idol. You will become a statue. You will get imagified. You may get imagified as a Indra, the king of gods. Or you might become a status of Vishnu, the sustainer. Or you may be idolified into Shiva, the destroyer, the annihilator. You want this? Do you want this? You are not you. You will not be King Alexander. Look and observe those statues. Do you see? Do you see those statues? What are they? Who they are? They were the ones who came before you, and they are now become the statues. I just murmured. So that means they will write a story of me in that language? They will compose an epic? So those all learned folks in academy, which are called rishis and sages, that's how they will defeat me? Is the purpose of life of Alexander to become a deity? Oh no. Now I had no answer. The voices were correct. I responded firmly, the way King Alexander responded before. I ordered Ptolemy to backmarch the forces. He got confused. He would not understand. He tried. He asked, are we not crossing into the eastern bank? No, was the firm order. My soldiers understood they are homesick, and hence King Alexander has ordered to march back. We stopped crossing the Indus and we started going to the from the previous route where we came from. But we were told we cannot take the same previous route. We have to take a new route. Again, we followed the advice. We crossed a desert, most difficult terrains. We were back in Persian land. I stopped counting. We lost many of soldiers, all my Hellenic generals. They were adopted in the new territory. They adopted the living style, the language, the tradition, and the attire. They were no more Hellenic soldiers. Whatever was left, we were marching with. Things were quite different now. I was observing the inner discomfort. The previous love and admiration was all but over. I saw those folks were literally poisoned. I was being called upon and given names. They started calling me a King Alexander the Macedonian or the Macedoni in their words. Such a great insult. King Alexander, the hegemon of Hellenes, Pharaoh of Egypt, the Shah of Persians, they were not acknowledging it. They were refusing to call me even Hellenic king. My head used to hurt a lot. I had a strange feeling of having two horns growing on my head. We reached Mesopotamia, Babylon, the Lion Gate. Whatever generals were left, but there was no sign of previous welcome. I believe the oracles were discussing the plan of crossing the Arabian land and reach the Holy Land for further advice. Probably there I was going to understand who I am and purpose of mine. King Alexander may become a Messiah. Is that a prophecy say? Will the wise people from that land will accept me as a Messiah? I had questions and questions with no answer. Every answer would generate a next question. The glass of wine which spilled from my hand, I had little consciousness. My head was hurting. I felt two horns on my head are now fully grown up. I knew I was only semi conscious, passing in and out. Strangely, I heard the voice of Aristotle. They Aristotle was doing there. They discussed about poison in the wine. Who did? Even in that state, I got the question. I clearly observed none of them wanted King Alexander either as a messiah or a holy figure. They didn't wanted me to cross Arabia or even to reach Holy Land and perhaps not even to Hellenic land. So I refused to become deity, but now what? What I am? Alexander the who? The who? The Alexander, the who? I touched my head, felt the horns. Alexander, the book of Phyllis. I observed my closing eyes.